Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia, of course, and I have got a really fun show planned for tonight. Um, Before I bring on my guest, I don't know if I've ever really talked about it on my show. You guys know I promote a lot of comic people, I promote animation. Those are two fields that I've worked in, more comics than anything. But another field I worked in was puppetry. I love puppets. I'm a big fan of puppets all around. Obviously, I'm a Jim Henson fan. I love the Muppets, and our guest is a big Muppet fan itself. And we're going to talk about Jim Henson's animated shows tonight. But just to give you a little quick background on me, I've been making puppets as a hobby almost my entire life. I took a book out of the library when I was a kid, and I found that I can make stuff out of anything around the house, and I realized that's what it was. But I always watched the Muppets because, I grew up on Sesame Street, the Muppet Show, all those things. In the early 2000s, I got to intern with a company called the Puppet Company. My mentor and the owner of the company still is a man named Steve Witterman. I worked a lot with rod puppets and marionettes, learning some repair stuff, mostly behind the stage. I have a background with video and storyboarding and animation, so I did a lot of stuff behind the scenes too with him. I didn't really do performance when I was with him, but I ran my own show for a little bit called You Don't Know Jack, and I just love puppets. But just so you know, Steve's background, he studied under Bill Baird, so he's got a really cool background history. But tonight, it's really about the Muppets. My guest tonight is Chris Stulz, who is the owner and runs the Muppet Stuff blog, and let's bring him on. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Michael. How's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent.
That's great. We've talked on and off. I don't know if I ever told you my background that you just heard, but I am a huge puppet fan just in general, and I'm obviously a big Henson fan. I wish I was able to get to my books. They're all in the closet. I literally have a bin of puppet books.
How many of those are Muppet books? That's what I want to know. That's the question everyone's asking. How many of those books are Muppet books?
7 or 8
out of 200. I don't know. I don't know.
Probably. I'll be honest. Probably out of maybe 15, 20 books.
Okay.
There's
That's a better answer. Okay.
Like
you've redeemed yourself.
Yes. I have. I believe it's called like The Art of Jim Henson. It's that big white book. You know what I mean? The works. The Jim. Yeah, the works of Jim Henson. I got that. I got some like an old book that's like a behind the scenes of the Muppets, like Sesame Street or something like that. It's really
of Muppets and Men.
You know what? I will take photos of it one day. Listen,
it's a new game. Guess the books on Michael's show.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to show you this. I don't normally show this part of the studio, but for those who don't know, I've recently sold my car, and my trunk was my convention storage. So if I go all the way over here, you can see on the floor, there's all this stuff in the back. It's blocking my closet door over there. So, and when you open the closet door, I have bin upon bins. I think I have like 8 bins in there that are just full of books and magazines and stuff. So it's a lot to get to. But yeah, I'm a huge fan. I even have. I'll show you this. This is a puppet. I was teaching 8th graders how to build little like puppets, and I pulled this out because even though he's sewn a little poorly, kids just love him, and his eyes are a little off too. It was really more focused on the kids. I haven't worn this guy in a while.
That's cool.
Thank you. And so, but yeah, under Steve, I got to study video puppetry, which is the way the Muppets work. Although we worked more with rod and marionette stuff. Anyway, we got Mike Lopez in the audience saying, "Hey, you guys." We got Dylan Royer saying, "I'm a fan of the Muppets." He's got a few things. We got Renee, 1980. Yay, Chris is on. Mr. Gertz, is that Gertzky? Really big fan. So yeah, we got a lot of people watching.
Excellent.
Really excited. So before we get into talking about the animated world of Jim Henson, tell me about what got you into the Muppets. I mean, you run the blog, you have a bunch of stuff behind you. So
and this is just like the tip of the iceberg. This is just my backdrop. I mean, I'm staring at, you know, a whole bunch more. If you want to see the rest of the stuff, it's in my collection, or at least the stuff that's on display. Be sure to go to my YouTube channel, and there's a whole tour that you can watch. It's like an hour or two of just going through everything.
What's your YouTube channel name? Muppet Stuff Blog?
Muppet Stuff. Yep,
Muppet Stuff. All right, awesome. You guys make sure you go to after watching this show tonight.
After, not now. after. Make sure we say that.
I definitely want to watch that. I don't think I've seen that one.
You will be blown away. I'm sure you'll be done saying, okay, well, here's my shopping list. Dear Santa, I would like that thing over there and that thing over there. 2 of those and 4 of these. I've been a good boy, I swear. That's what, but what got me into the Muppets was I like to think that it was my aunt's fault. My cousins are about 5 to 10 years older than me. And so I was born in 1979. So I'm going to age myself right off the bat. And so I was born sort of at the height of the Muppet Show, right as the Muppet movie was coming out, like that whole like the zenith of the classic Muppet era, right? But my cousins were born sort of at the beginning of the Sesame Street era, 1979, 74, that kind of era in there. So when I was born, growing up, I already had the Muppet movie soundtrack, the original Sesame Street soundtrack from 1969, the original Muppet Show album. I had all these things like handed to me down, like, oh, our kids are too old for this. You have a baby, here you go. So and I didn't even think about it until numerous years later when people started asking me, how do you get in the Muppets? I was like, well, I've always just had them, but how did I always have them, right? And it's because of that, because there's no way I was a toddler, 2 or 3 years old, asking, oh, please get me the out-of-print Sesame Street record from 1969. Please get me the Muppet Show record that hasn't been in print for 5, like all these things. But I had them growing up. And again, we're similar ages. We didn't have YouTube. We couldn't just automatically look for any video we wanted at demand, right? We didn't have these things. So we had these things called imaginations, kids. And what we had to do is we had books. So there's like Muppet Show books, story books, and there's the Muppet Show book, which I didn't have. That was on my wish list for years. But what we could do, because we couldn't just watch the Muppet Show whenever we wanted, we had those records, physical. The records are back these days, but for a while it was like talking about records. Like what are you talking about? But physical albums, and I ran that thing on that record player continuously, because that's how we could watch the Muppet Show over and over again. Obviously it was only the X amount of skits that were and songs that were on the album, but the Muppet movie, the Muppet Show soundtrack, that Sesame Street record, and a few other LPs and stuff. Those were like on heavy rotation. So and then back when in the 80s, when video then started becoming a thing, you could rent the Muppet movie. We would tape them off TV. You could go to the video store and rent them. And then they had like compilations of the Muppet Show. I mean, I did not see a full episode of the Muppet Show besides being like something I taped off TV for years, because the only thing available was those Playhouse video series, which were compilations that so there wasn't like full episodes. I would see them on TV and I record them myself, but that's the only way that I could even watch those for years. Now they're on Disney Plus. It's fantastic.
You know what? I haven't watched them on Disney. I have the DVD collections. I don't remember if all the seasons came out, but
only the first 3 seasons.
3. That's right. Yeah.
DVD. And there's a few edits on the DVDs.
Yeah.
And like it's weird because the first season of the Muppet Show on DVD, they put the later season intros on. Actually, no, when they first came out on like the best of, and then they put them out for real on the that first season set. But there was like other kind of music rights issues. But now when they're on Disney Plus, they fixed those and did other cuts. So there's other things that are missing. The Don Knotts episode revolves around them doing the Lullaby of Birdland song at the end, and every reference to them doing that song and the final number itself is completely omitted. So it's
okay.
The whole thing is very strange.
Wow.
But it is what it is. But that's that's how I get into it. That I was like born at the right time, and like I said, handed the keys, said here's some Muppet stuff, and it just kind of grew from there. And like I said, the movies were coming out as when I was a kid. Muppet Caper, Muppet Takes Manhattan. They used to have specials like every couple of years. There'd be a new Muppet special. If there wasn't a show, there'd be a special. So there was John Denver at the Muppets Rocky Mountain Holiday, Muppets Family Christmas. I mean, every 2 or 3 years there was something else. So it was big. And then into the 90s, especially after Jim Henson died, the company kind of didn't know what to do, and it's kind of lost its way a little bit and came back and forth. And now we're kind of back in that kind of period again where the rise of the 2011 movie, kind of brought the characters back, and now we're kind of like, well, are we doing things? But they are doing some great stuff. The Muppets Haunted Mansion that came out a year or so ago, that was fantastic.
I agree with that. I have to say, I think that was the closest I've seen to like a Henson Muppet story since Henson passed away. Yeah,
and it was a perfect combination of Disney synergy and a Muppet story. Because they were trying to do something like that for years called Muppet Haunted Hotel. And I think when Disney Imagineering kind of got involved with the Muppets, they were like, well, why don't you just do Muppet Haunted Mansion and kind of weave that story into it? And I think that's a perfect blend of what Disney can do to move things along. Because you're going to have people chime in and tune in just to see the Muppets. And then you also have the Haunted Mansion fans who are a rabid bunch. They are. There's a whole, you think I have a lot of Muppet stuff. There's a whole merch collection group of Haunted Mansion stuff.
I know a few of them.
Yes, I know a few of them myself. But so that's the whole thing. So you got two audiences coming together, and it worked out really well. And I'm looking forward to the new Electric Mayhem show. Those are my favorite characters. Dr. Teeth's my favorite. So I am all about this new Electric Mayhem series that's coming.
And do you I heard that they were doing something, but I know nothing about it. Is there anything that you can share? Any release? I know nothing.
Well, I know it's a look at the Electric Mayhem trying to put their first album out.
Okay.
After being in the music industry for 50 years, whatever it is, they're now finally putting their first record out, and they want to break into the entertainment music business, and they're finding it hard to do that. And along the way, they meet celebrity guests, and they sing songs, or they work on the music they're going to do. And I believe, spoiler alert, I believe at the end they put out an album.
Yeah.
So I believe Disney will finally listen to us fans, and is basically using this show as another catalyst to, as a promotion to put this album out, like Disney did for Disneyland and Disney World. They had these shows. So I think this is a great, again, another piece of Disney synergy. Make a show that's basically not only just an entertaining piece that's a show, but it's also a commercial to sell the album, which Penny's been asking for 50 years.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I don't care how you sell it to me. I'm already going to buy it. So I'm good. I'm in. You've already sold it.
I'm with you. I'm a big Electric Mayhem fan myself, although my favorite will always be Fozzie. So
that's a good one.
I'm a big Fozzie fan. I don't know, I guess I'm just a fan of bad jokes, and
I am a lot of people, I've been called a lot of things in my life, both good and bad. But one of the things that people say about me is I'm the king of the dad joke. I could write Fozzie Bear jokes all day long.
Yeah.
And I really, and people think I hold my breath because I'm like, oh, I got if you've watched, yeah, if you've seen my videos
Mhm.
on my Muppet Stuff channel, I don't do as many dad jokes, but if you see me on Cinema Sickness's channel, where we
Mhm.
actually, show us finding many of the items, you will hear some dad jokes, because I just see these things and I just have to make a terrible joke about them, because you see some of these things at thrift stores and they are definitely worthy of being ridiculed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at this thing. All right, well, insert dad joke here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great though. So you said, can we get those links through your YouTube channel or?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
the videos that I'm a part of are on my YouTube channel as well, under guest appearances. Like this will be. We'll have that right there, so people can access this at a later date, right along with everything else that between my me sitting here talking about Muppet stuff and me being on a show talking about Muppet stuff.
Is it? Let's see. Chris's dad jokes are the best, and Dylan said, "I love Kermit the Frog. Who doesn't?" I mean,
that was my thing. People would always ask me, first, how did you get into the Muppets, and who's your favorite Muppet? Well, for years it was Kermit, and it was just, and nothing wrong with Kermit. Don't get me wrong here, but for me, it just seemed like it was just too easy of an answer.
Yeah.
And so for me to be such a big fan and say, "Oh, my favorite Muppet is Kermit," was like, that's boring for me anyway.
Yeah,
so
I understand.
I had to come up with another green Muppet Show character performed by Jim Henson, and I picked Dr. Teeth.
Yeah, no, I it's funny. I always kind of divide it up. I always say my favorite Muppet is Fozzie. It's true, and I think I like him because of the innocence about him. There's just this sweetness about it's like he doesn't how do I say it? I mean, he's like a big kid. It's almost like a Big Bird, where Big Bird was this little kid on the show. Fozzie is that for the Muppet Show in a way, but a little older, a little smarter, and every now and then he puts out a gem that just cracks you up so hard. Like, I forgot what it was, but there was a line he said in the new Muppet movie from 2011 that, like, when I watch it, I have to pause it because I laugh so hard at it. And when I go to Sesame Street, it'll always be Grover. I don't know. I love Grover so much. So.
I mean, how can anyone not like your old lovable pal Grover? I mean,
exactly.
It's like right in the title.
Yeah.
Your favorite lovable pal Grover. I mean, he knows.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure we can just talk about this type of stuff for the entire show, but we're here specifically for a reason today, because my channel does focus on cartoons and stuff. We're going to talk about Jim Henson's animated world. Now, I'm only familiar with a couple of shows. You sent me a bunch of images, and we'll look at them. I'm mostly familiar with Muppet Babies. That was the most popular. I remember Fraggle Rock, and there was one other, I can't remember the name now, from what you sent me, that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this one too. I'm actually a big Hanna-Barbera fan. I mean, if I show, screw it, I'll show it. You've probably never seen it, but that is all Pops and other stuff.
That grape ape, that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. I love that. And I have like 3 Ricochet rabbits because he's my favorite, all the way at the top there.
Hong Kong Phooey. I'm a big Hong Kong Phooey fan.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
That was my thing. Hanna-Barbera and the Muppets were like my 2 major things growing up. I actually got to meet Joe Barbera when I was like about 9 or 10 years old. I never got to meet Jim Henson, but I did get to meet Joe Barbera.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God.
I went to college to be an animator. That was what my job was going to be, and I kind of started doing it, and it just wasn't something I wanted to kind of pursue. But I have a degree. Basically, my degree is in animation, so I'm a huge animation fan. That's why when you said we talked about this topic, I'm like, well, this combines both my wheelhouses.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where when you talk about Jim Henson, everybody, thinks about the Muppets. That's the first thing people think of. But the Henson Company as a whole has a very rich history in animation. And I think most people don't really, like you said, most people remember Muppet Babies, but it goes way beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just so you know, I just wanted to finish my thought about the Hanna-Barbera. The reason I was saying that is because I ended up focusing, like, my entire life was to be an animator, not just like a cartoonist who draws comics and stuff. That came a little later. So everything I did was really about Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tune cartoons. And that was really it. That if it was Hanna-Barbera, Looney, I watched it, But being the Muppet fan that I was, and knowing Fraggle Rock and knowing, the Muppets, being a Saturday morning cartoon fan, I watched those cartoons a lot. And by the way, I read, I forget if it was on Facebook or one of the social medias. I saw that where you went to school. I saw that you have your degree. And I was like, oh, okay, you know this stuff. I mean,
shout out to SCAD. That's where I went.
That was the school I was looking at one point. Didn't go, but I have friends who are graduates from there. Let me just pull up some. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to mention that, it's funny that you mentioned Hanna-Barbera in this kind of same breath as the Muppets. And for me, it's so funny because what the Disney is starting to do with the Muppets now is sort of like a reverse Hanna-Barbera. And just follow this thought for a second, because the Muppets started out with, especially the Muppet Show Muppets, started out as a group together, right? So there's the Muppet Show, they had different skits, but they were all together in Muppet movies, all that stuff. And now they're starting to like branch them out and do things individually, like this, Electric Mayhem show that's coming up. With the Haunted Mansion, it was more focused on Gonzo and Pepe than any other role of the major characters. And with Hanna-Barbera, it was like the opposite, right? They started out as individual shows, like Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear Show, and then they gradually brought them together, like the Jetsons meet the Flintstones, Yogi's Treasure Hunt, those kind of things. And so it's like with Yogi's Scooby's Laugh Olympics, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of funny how they, it's like reversed.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned Yogi's Treasure Hunt. For the last 2 weeks, I've been watching that show almost nightly on Boomerang. It is one of my.
It's on there, huh?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite cartoons. Like, I'll go back and be like, okay, I know this is not the best cartoon, but it was out when I was 9 years old. I love their animal characters over like Scooby-Doo and stuff. I always liked, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound. Like I said, Ricochet is one of my favorite, with Magilla Gorilla, Peter Potamus, all those guys. And this is something, and I was thinking about this the other day. I watched an episode from season 1, and some of the writing, knowing that you and I were going to talk, made me think about Muppet style comedy almost. I'm like, in Yogi, like, it's very clever writing where sometimes if you aren't paying attention, you miss the joke. And that's what happens in the Muppets. Like, I just remember there was, Snagglepuss said something like, put up your dukes and your duchesses, like, just really quick. And I'm like, dude, that's what, like, I could see that in a Muppet, comedy bit. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably why I like both of them so much. That it's clever writing.
There was that whole few years where you had like DuckTales kind of started the afternoon cartoon block, and it was with adventures and all that. And they brought the Hanna-Barbera characters with Yogi's Treasure Hunt, and that's always been my favorite. I'm glad it's coming back on Boomerang, because I've been hoping that they would release it on DVD. They've released so many other classic Hanna-Barbera shows. So.
I think there's an issue last time I looked, but you could, I think, purchase it on sites like Amazon or, like on Apple. You can purchase the whole series, but I pay, I think it's $40 or $60 a year for the Boomerang app. And I watch that quite a bit.
Because I had Boomerang on one of my services or something. I had it, but it wasn't on there. So I'm glad it's now on there. That's I'll have to check
well, it's not on the network.
Oh,
It's on
the
it's
streaming
on
thing.
the streaming app. Yeah, I bought it. I'll tell you just real quick. I bought it because I used to do a lot of comic conventions. Obviously, I haven't done many or really any since the pandemic happened. But I'd stay overnight in hotels, and I need something to watch, and I don't want to watch things that like just stupid TV that's on. You flip through the channels. Oh, there's another Law and Order SVU. It's like I want to watch something different, so I'll put on Boomerang and I'll just watch a few different shorts here and there, and I love it. I loved it,
And it keeps you engaged in the fandom too. And so when you see fans at these conventions, they talk, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm watching, Thundercats, or I'm watching this, and I'm watching that." So you can, exactly.
Yeah. So let's move on. I'm going to share the screen. We're going to look at some of the cartoon, and you can tell us about them. Give us a little bit of the history. First, we're going to look. I know you sent me 2 folders, one of actual like screenshots or title pages or whatever. Right. And then you have a thing of merch, and I'm assuming the merch comes from your personal collection.
Right. So I was going to, let's talk about the shows and the history, and then some of the merch that spawned from that series.
Okay, we're just going to go in order, even if it's not a, in order of when they came out.
Sure.
Just because it's just easier.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So
on Sesame Street, that was, the Muppets' big hit. Most people think of Ernie and Bert, but there was a stop motion Bert and Ernie series as part of Sesame Street called Bert and Ernie's Adventures. And I wrote it down. It came out in, let's see, 2008. They put these out. And this is just a screenshot of the. It's kind of small if everybody can see it, but it's a screenshot of the stop motion characters. And I was a big stop motion man. That was actually my focus in college was stop motion. There we go. Now you can see it. So it's Bert and Ernie in I think an octopus. I just picked just an image that could represent the shorts. They did a number of shorts like this, and we have some pictures of these. But they did like Abby's Flying Fairy School, and the Tweedle Bugs got their own series as well. But that was just a part of a long history of Sesame Street doing animation. They had obviously the animated segments that were like supposed to be commercials, right? Mm-hmm. So you had the street scene, and then they would cut to a commercial for the letter A, or the pinball number count. I think we have a screenshot of that in there too. The Pointer Sisters did that back in 1977. Wow. The pinball number count came out. So I mean, that was just like just a small example of a larger segment of animation from Sesame Street.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny you said stop motion. That's my least favorite to animate. I'm a 2D hand drawn kind of.
Well, that was the thing. I would be drawing, and I would say to myself, "Man, wouldn't this just be easier if I built this thing once, and then just like moved it?" And so like when you start like, "Oh, that's stop motion," I'm like, "Oh, that's great." Well, I mean, and here's a controversial opinion. Technically, I think puppet. I mean, I don't think this is speaking so far out there, but I really think puppetry should be considered animation for like Oscars and Emmys and that kind of stuff, because they have this category for best animated movie feature right at the Academy Awards. But the Muppets aren't considered animation because they're a live action movie.
Yeah.
But anything that you bring to life that's an inanimate object is animation.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. What I'm going to add to it is puppetry has become so advanced these days with robotics and other things that it's almost you could even build a digital puppet and have someone kind of wearing a motion capture suit or just controlling it through a control thing. Disney does that a lot. I mean, if you go into Epcot, into what is it, Crush's thing? Crush is a digital puppet, and
that's actually what we're looking at right now. Dinosaur Train is one of their digital puppetry series, that the Henson Company does, and it's like these guys are just wearing these massive suits, and they are able to perform the characters in real time, and then the computer then generates a higher res image later.
Yeah. The other thing, I wanted to add was a lot of people, when I started in learning animation in a school setting, which was 94. I'm only 3 years older than you. And I was in 94. My animation teacher was a puppeteer. He used to do like Punch and Judy stuff, and he's the one who kind of got me back into puppetry. So a shout out to Donald Heller. You know, man, you're awesome dude there. He's known as the hurdy-gurdy man if you want to look him up on YouTube. He's retired.
Did he learn English from the Swedish Chef? The hurdy-gurdy.
He was, from what I remember, he's born and raised here, but he traveled Europe. He knows how to play the hurdy-gurdy, and now he's retired. He lives, I believe, in Boston, and he sits on a bench now on his days off, spare day, and he just plays the hurdy-gurdy. His whole family is like into like that medieval Renaissance instrument playing. It's really cool stuff. They used to be known as the Hurdy-Gurdy Family Band, but now I think it's just him. And I don't know. I know he had a dog that passed away. He was very upset. I mean, I would have been too. But I believe he's got a new dog, and him and the dog just sit at a place in Boston, and he plays the hurdy-gurdy on the street. But one of the things that I remember, and talking with my when I was taking 3D animation, my 3D animation teacher, he was a sculptor by trade, but he was also a puppeteer. And he said something that stuck with me, and he knew I knew puppetry, and I sculpted a little bit, but not a lot. He was like, anybody who sculpts will be a good 3D modeler. Anybody who knows how puppetry works will be a good 3D animator. They'll be better than someone who just understands animation, because they like, if you understand how to string a marionette and move that marionette, you're going to understand how the joints move in a character, and how things can be animated. And so he was like, the better 3D animators are puppeteers, the better 3D modelers are sculptors. And I don't know if that's true today, but it's always stuck with me.
I mean, it makes perfect sense, especially in the early days of the medium when they were trying to teach it. I think that's a really interesting way to teach animation. Is like if you had some marionettes, and then you know exactly where the joints were and how to move, because that's what you have to do. And I could not really get into the 3D animating aspect, because they, in college they make you model the character too. And I'm like, I don't want to model this. This is terrible. How do I put this thing together?
Yeah.
And then making the skeleton, all that whole piece was beyond me. So I would give me a character that was pre-rigged, and I can here's the elbow, and I can do this, and I can move it this. Oh, there's a whole other story. Yeah. That's why I like stop motion, because okay, I can build an armature, and I can get the joints and that, and I can let it go. But that's a really interesting perspective on that. This is Dinosaur Train.
I was going to ask, did we even talk about this one?
Barely. So this is Dinosaur Train. This was on from 2009 to 2021. It ran for 100 episodes. It's one of the longest running Henson animated shows.
Wow.
It's besides for one other one, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, so it's these things kind of go under the radar. You don't quite think about these things, because a lot of them now are more for kids than the more adult Muppet stuff. Or the Henson things are doing with Stuff and Unstrung and Happy Time Murders, that kind of stuff. But this is they're a lot more kid friendly, educational programming. Most of them run on PBS. They have obviously have a good relationship since the Sesame Street days with them. So this was from them. I don't know what our next slide is.
We're gonna find out.
Dog City.
This is the other one I remembered.
All right, so talk about animators. This show is all about an animator, and it was based off of the Jim Henson Hour special, Dog City, which was like a film noir with dogs. They basically took the old poker image of the dogs playing poker, you know, that old image you used to see everywhere, and kind of like, you know, thought about that, like, oh, let's make a show kind of like in this style. And so they made that special, and they have these puppets, and I guess they were like, oh, what can we do with these things? And they created this show for Fox, and that came out, let's see what time that came out, and ran for 31 episodes from 1992 to 1995 on Fox, Saturday mornings. And what this was, it's super like Looney Tunesy. When you think of one of the greatest Looney Tunes shorts of all time, like Duck Amuck by Chuck Jones, this is like that short as a series, because the character of Elliot Shag, it was a different character than it's the same puppet from the Henson special, the live action puppet special, but they used him now as an animator, and he's creating this show called Dog City, and he interacts with the animated character of Ace Hart, who is more like the characters from the special Dog City, and he's a private detective. And what makes it, like I said, like Duck Amuck, is that when the character or the story gets stuck, things that can only happen in animation start to happen. So like pianos fall out of the sky, or you know, they'll say like, oh, wait, I don't like where this is heading. I don't like where the story's heading. And the animator's like, well, what do you want me to do? Well, write me a love story. And then all of a sudden, now it swipes, and now it's a love story. Something else happens. It's really interesting in that perspective, because you don't see animators portrayed in any show for that matter, let alone in dog form. So, you know, what's happening in Elliot's life in the real life dog world influences the show that he's creating, and it's really interesting. You can watch it on a few of the streaming sites. I was checking out a few episodes just in preparation for this, and you know, it has its moments. There's some kiddie stuff, because it's so cartoony. There's the stakes tend to be lessened in the story itself, because anything can happen. And you're like, well, how's he gonna get out of this? Well, it doesn't really matter, because he can just like, oh, okay, well, all of a sudden there's a hole in the wall, or all of a sudden something happened. He's like, oh, all right. But it's still interesting in that regard. And they didn't do a whole lot of merch for that show, but they did put out a couple of coloring books. And hold
on. I'm going to give you the screen so we can see it.
And they put out some puzzles. So this is a Dog City puzzle. It was put out by Golden Books, and you can see that's Ace Hart and his friend in the show. And they didn't really put a whole lot of the puppet dog stuff out. They mainly stuck to the cartoon versions of the characters. But yeah, it's rare to see Dog City stuff. It's like I said, it ran for 3 years, but you know, at 31 episodes, they rerun a bunch of them over time. But yeah, it was a fairly successful show for the time.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I do remember this show. That was like I said, that was the other one I remembered. It was
well, being an animator, right? It's like you kind of hone in. Oh, there's a show about an animator. He's a dog. Oh, I gotta check that out.
No, well, I'll tell you the truth. If it was on Saturday morning, I watched it. I mean, that's just the way it was. It was. I at one point, I don't remember how old I was. I maybe was like 12, maybe 13. I had a setup in my bedroom where I had multiple TVs and I had VCRs hooked up to it. And what I would do is I would record one channel while I watched cartoons on another on Saturday morning, so I didn't miss these other cartoons. And
what you're describing is Red Box or Red Zone, right? The NFL Red Zone for cartoons.
Yeah, I taught myself how to draw actually by watching cartoons. What I did was all these things I recorded, I played back and I would pause a frame and I would draw what I saw on the TV. So before I had how to draw books or took actual drawing lessons outside of school, that's how I learned. And when I wanted to learn animation, I used to play them back in slow motion to see if I could figure it out. Wasn't really the best way to learn. And then I got the book you mentioned, Chuck Jones. It was called Chuck-a-Muck, I believe, the book. And there's a flip book if you go through the side of it, where the coyote is chasing the roadrunner, and he misses and he goes all the way down. And that was my first time actually seeing like individual how things moved. And even though I read the book at, whenever it came out, I was in high school, I just kept flipping and flipping and copying and flipping and understanding the pose. And like, that's how I taught myself, was through that book.
And that's a really cool way to do it, because a lot of times when you hear someone say, oh, it's a still image that's just like flashing in front of you, and that creates the animation. But when you see it in individual, you get like a zoetrope, you get some of these things, and you can actually see the individual images and how your persistence of vision creates it. It's that's really cool. Oh, I have one more thing to show you with this show.
Absolutely. Let me give you the screen again.
So with animation, there's a physical element to it. Something physically exists.
Yes.
So everything is on cells. So this is an original Dog City cell. And what makes this one so neat, when I saw, they had a couple of them online years ago, and what drew me to this one, what made me get this one specifically, was that this is, when cells have more than one character on it, they're usually a little more sought after. And not only does this have more than one character, it's like the main villains. And not only are they the main villains, this is from the title sequence. This was seen in every episode, because it's literally the title sequence. So this is like they're running around. I can show you a little better here. They're running around, and like they're taunting him in his mind. So they're they're just messing with him. So if you go on and watch any episode of Dog City, you will see this in every episode in the opening credits. It's kind of cool. So I was trying to pinpoint it exactly. I don't know the exact timestamp, but you will see this. So when I saw it, I'm like, I got to show this because it's just really, really cool.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I love those things. I don't own many cells myself. None of them are framed. I do have original pencil, the original pencil to a frame from a DuckTales of Scrooge, because Scrooge is my favorite Disney character. And my wife gave it to me for Christmas a few years ago. But because it's such an odd size, it's hard to find an actual frame. And then I got to think about what kind of mat do I want. And
well, funny enough, I actually just happened to find this in one of my closets like a day ago. I was looking for something else, kind of preparing for this, but looking for something completely different. And this kind of came up. And I was like, oh, look at that. And I found this double matted frame at Michael's. So and it's almost the perfect size for an animation cell.
Oh,
so
that's great.
If you're looking for something, you may be able to find it at your local Michael's for not much money. See, your cat knows we're talking about dogs.
You hear him, don't you?
I do, and she they know we're talking about dogs and is pissed off. There isn't any cat series there. Oh well, I guess the girlfriend's a cat. For some reason, the mobster's girlfriend is a cat. I don't know what that's about.
Hold on one second. He just walked out. I'm closing the door.
My cat's the same way. As soon as he hears something going on, hey, let me literally chime in. I want to chime in. I have opinions on that the audience would love to hear.
Go for it.
That's what your cats say. Like, I've seen that show. I didn't like the cat representation.
Now listen, he's a good cat, but he sleeps under my radiator in my studio almost the entire day. But he has a toy that he likes to play with, and the second it's in his mouth, he just makes noise.
So he likes that. All right.
It's like his hunting, it's like he that little, it's a little stick in a tail, and it's like he's hunting it, and it's like, come on, look at me, look at what I killed for you. And let me bring it back out. Let's move on to the next one here. What do we got?
So,
oh, the Doozers. Yes, I saw advertisements for this.
So this is an interesting one because not many people have heard about this, but it ran, surprisingly enough, for 72 episodes.
Really?
72 episodes from 2013 through 2014 on Hulu. This was it's now I think available on some other streaming services, but yeah, when Hulu was just starting out, this was one of their first original series. They wanted to get a name brand out there, whatever, and they reached out to the Henson Company, and they created this show about 3 or 4 Doozers that are not from the original series. I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with this show either, and I'm not sure if that many original Doozers are in here. But they made this, 4 or 5, whatever, brand new Doozers, and of course, and this was like CG. Of course, this is a spin-off of Fraggle Rock, and so if you ever have a trivia question that says how many shows were spun off from Fraggle Rock, you have to include this. There's like 4 or 5. You have regular Fraggle Rock, the Fraggle Rock animated series, which we'll talk about, this show Doozers, and Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock. Actually, in Fraggle Rock Rock On, I guess was considered maybe a show with shorts. So yeah, there's a lot of offshoots of Fraggle Rock that most people aren't even aware of, including this one.
Interesting.
I think I don't know if they didn't release a whole lot of merch for this. They might have a couple of DVDs and stuff. Nothing really major. Even though you would think if a show ran for 72 episodes, you'd think they would have released a little more merch, but
it was also streaming. It's right. I don't know how much public. I remember seeing advertisements. I do subscribe to Animation Magazine, the digital copies. So I'm pretty sure that's where I saw it. I probably read an article about it, but I didn't. I didn't watch the show because I'm not the target audience for this. Right. This is obviously aimed towards little kids.
And it's about STEM. It's about science, technology. It's like that was the focus of the show, which it makes sense because it's about engineering. Yeah. Nice.
What do we got up next? Puzzles?
Okay. So this is a shot of an animation desk. And not just any animation desk. This was Jim Henson's animation desk for a short that he created in the 60s called Drums West, which I believe we have a title sequence. So this was I guess you could call it a stop motion piece. It's all done with small paper cutouts, which you can kind of see they're all laid out. And he back in the day, before you had After Effects and Premiere, all these easier ways of animating, he had a record, and he would jot down a piece of paper the timing of it and when things were supposed to happen, and he would put these small, we're talking really small, you can see there's very small pieces of paper, cutouts, and boom 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 boom, boom like to this jazz thing. I should mention, this is a good time to mention, in coming together to research some of these shows, when we put this up live, there will be on the Muppet Stuff blog a whole segment of all these shows that you can watch clips from and full episodes. Awesome. So when you say like, oh, that's a weird show, I'd like to look at that. Maybe I don't know what he's talking about. You will be able to find that with this all together and see this whole the whole Henson animated universe, as you call it, like the Hanna-Barbera, the what is that? The Henson HAU animated universe.
It's funny that you say I have this thing I'm working on right now, and I've mentioned it on the show, but having my comic background and animation background, I'm in the process of putting videos together of little like 3-minute things about shows or specific animators or comic artists, like a little history. And I don't know why, but I never thought to do Jim Henson. I might have to add him in because one of the things I specifically love is the art designs behind these characters. Henson's sketches, or whoever was sketching them, that Henson style of illustration. I just love that stuff. I think it's so it's got this great absurdity to it, and again, another connection with Hanna-Barbera. Hanna-Barbera was a company that understood how to illustrate the absurd. and create, idiotic devices and whatever. I mean, you look at Wacky Racers, their car. I could see Henson developing, vehicles like that for his characters. So I think maybe
they would build them in the creature shop and have them actually function and actually do
yeah.
that. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Let's see what's next here. Drums West. That's the title sequence.
That's the title sequence of the title shot for Drums West.
Yeah.
So he made that in 1961.
Wow.
There was a few other short animated movies that Henson did in that time period. So this was one of the first ones. But yeah, it's really cool. And it's because it's obviously it's a very heavy drum focused jazz piece that he took this from, and it's you'll be able to watch that and check it out. It's really, really neat.
That's fantastic. I've never even seen it. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it, and I'm a jazz fan, so I should watch it. Oh, okay.
So many people don't. Again, we're going deep here. This is a still from Follow That Bird, the first ever Sesame Street movie from 1985. And people are like, well, that's a live action movie. Yes. However, in the very beginning of the movie, it opens with an animated segment of Big Bird blowing up the WB logo that goes up to the sky. And then later on in the film, there's a fantasy sequence of Big Bird envisioning his life with a family of birds that are like him. And that's what this is from.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that, so even in live action movies, I'm pretty sure this is the only, thing that the Hensons did in a movie. That's like, it's just, blur, 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 it becomes this fantasy sequence. And it's all animated. I guess it was so much easier to do it this way than have to build giant Big Bird puppets, because Big Bird is, the people may not know this, but Big Bird is a fairly expensive character to build. And that's why he wasn't in this, they put out a Broadway type show, like Broadway musical, Sesame Street the musical. And Big Bird was not a part of that. And the reasoning is because the production company didn't want to pay. I think it was like, let's say it's over over $20,000 from what I heard, to have their own version of Big Bird. They didn't want to have to dump that chunk of change, so that's why they didn't include it. They maybe had like a segment they recorded on this from the real character or something and put it in, but they didn't have their own walk around or because it's just too expensive. So that's why I think they did this, because it's just cost effective. But it works because it's a fantasy sequence anyway. Yeah,
that's great. I love the designs there. I love that. And of course,
so after Fraggle Rock, the regular series ended, someone at NBC asked the Henson Company if they thought, this would be a cool way to get the characters to reinvent themselves a little bit and get a little more broader audience, because the original show was only on HBO. And then when it was rerun, it was still only shown on cable. And even today, it's on a cable type channel, Apple TV Plus. So it was never really that readily available in the United States. In Canada, it was on their education channel, almost like Sesame Street. So it's much more readily available and widely seen in Canada.
Interesting.
But here in the United States, it wasn't. So they put it on NBC. And it only ran for 13 episodes. From what I read, the rumor is that some executive's kid, when asked about this show, said, I don't really like that one. So like, all right, axe that.
Wow.
And it's a shame because it's very repetitive to the original series. There's a lot of things that happen again. It's kind of like the new show Back to the Rock has the same kind of, let's reuse some of the songs or some of the plot lines, but we'll do them in a little different way. It's kind of like that. But what I thought interesting, because I watched a couple episodes again in preparation for this, was that there's 2 11-minute shows in a 30-minute block, and some of the series, some of the stories, I should say, intertwine. So you'll have an 11-minute or whatever episode, story that deals with this water issue, and you'll see things happening, and then all of a sudden the second story begins, and you look at it, and for the first minute or two, you're like, am I missing something? Didn't I just watch this? Because it's literally the same exact show. It begins, but now you're going to see it from a different perspective. Now you're seeing it from the Doozers' perspective, the same story you just saw, but now. So I thought that was fairly interesting because you don't ever see that in a children's Saturday morning show.
Yeah,
it's like here's I mean they could have probably edited them together, and it probably would have made a little more sense because that's how the original show was. But it was interesting how they split them up. Like, okay, this is the Fraggle story going on here, and now here's the Doozer story. And it was fairly successful, even though for a show that only ran 13 episodes, they did release some merch for it.
All right, let me give you the screen here.
So they released this thermos. Thermos released this lunchbox, and of course, it has the actual thermos. If I can see the Doozer on there. So there's a Doozer.
It's a little hard, but yeah. Oh, I see it.
Yeah. There we go. Hold it back for the light a little bit. So there's a Doozer and some kind of like Fraggle Rock character. I'm not sure what the little character is, but it's a little, a Fraggle Rockian on there. And the front, of course, has, the main Fraggle 5, Wimbly Gobo, Moki, Wimbly, and Red. They have to be set in that order. That is the correct order. Don't ever say them in another order. That is the correct order. So they released this, and what most people don't know, I'm sure people have seen the Happy Meal toys. Like they're at every flea market, at every toy show. You see them all the time. They have the characters in like a radish or a carrot car, all this stuff. What many people don't realize is they are actually released for the animated series. They were released to help promote that show, not the original show, but the animated series.
Wow.
So it's kind of odd that some of the most recognizable toys of Fraggle Rock are not from the actual original show. They're from the animated series.
Yeah.
Which it's like real. That's just really bizarre. And of course, years later, they released it not once, not twice, but multiple times on DVD now. You can get it individually, and they also released it as part of the box sets of the whole original series box sets. The DVD and the Blu-ray include the entire run, and as well as some bonus features and some model sheets and things of the animated series as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
Something you don't really see for a show that only ran like 13 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't released Dog City, which ran more episodes.
Let's see what's next. Oh, this I don't know at all, but I've seen these images.
Yeah, so this was based on a book, a children's book called Francis, and the Henson Company. This was their first foray into the digital puppetry series realm. So this came out in 2008, and they only made 6 episodes of this for some reason before it got canceled. And this
hold on. I want to interrupt you. I want to see this. She goes, "This is from Lisa. I received 9 of the original sketch storyboards from the animated series from the recent London production Shine." Cool.
Yes, Lisa, yeah. I saw that online. I saw that. Well, we haven't, as of this recording, I still haven't shown everybody everyone's Christmas gifts. But I did pull that, and that's going to be on our blog post about people's Christmas presents. Because her husband or boyfriend or partner, whoever that was, I forget off the top of my head, but they definitely won Christmas with those original storyboards from Fraggle Rock, not from Francis. It's Fraggle Rock, the animated series.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was this Francis show. I had saw all these ads for it, and then I wondered what happened to it. I never really saw it, and it just kind of came and went. I'm not sure what happened, but this was all motion capture, I believe, too, and it was their first kind of foray into the this realm. And for whatever reason, it didn't do well. They released 3 episodes of it on a promotional DVD, and not the other 3. So if the show only ran 6 episodes and they released half of it on DVD at a time, but it's like you only have 6 episodes. You could have just done them all. It's very strange. So that's this show.
All right, let's see what's next on the list. The
Little
Muppet Monsters.
So this is a really underground show. Muppet Babies obviously is the behemoth we'll talk about soon. But this show was a spinoff because Muppet Babies was so major, was just such a major hit that hold on, I'm going to jump around here for just a second. There we go. Muppet Babies was just such a major hit that they wanted something else to spin off or whatever. So they made the show an hour long, and they called it Muppets, Babies, and Monsters. And they had it's really strange because they have a dual opening sequence with both Muppet Babies and Muppet Monsters, and then it'll cut into either the Muppet Babies or Little Muppet Monsters, and then the theme song basically repeats, but with just one or the other. It's very odd. Again, when you're done watching this, when we put this up, you'll be able to watch these later, and you'll see it's very strange. So this show doesn't take place in a nursery like Muppet Babies. They're a little older characters, and they're actual puppets. And they live in the Muppet townhouse, like basically the Henson townhouse that that actually exists. It's kind of like a version of that. And the Muppets themselves are living in this townhouse. And these Muppet monsters, these little Muppet monsters, if you will, are putting on a show because they love the Muppet Show, and it's a closed circuit TV up through the house. So other Muppets are watching these kids put on this show, and they've animated segments in between of Pigs in Space and Kermit Private Eye. Muppet Labs had a thing. So really interesting how they took the regular Muppets and made them animated, and then had they're there in puppet form as well.
Yeah.
So what happened with this show is Marvel, who did the animating on Muppet Babies, was doing this show as well, and they could not produce the animated segments fast enough. And it kind of blows my mind. It's mind-boggling to think about this. But they put the show out while they were making it. Like today, most shows are made and they get half the season done or the whole season done, and then it airs, right?
Yeah.
They were literally putting this on as they were making it and animating it. So they could not get the animated segments done in time. So they were really far behind with air dates. And so they aired a couple of episodes, and Jim Henson didn't like, the scheduling issues, and it didn't like how how it was kind of fitting in with the live action versus the animation. He thought the live action pieces were just so much more professional, not professional, but so much more to the standard, I should say, of the Henson Company, and the animation was kind of wasn't keeping up the pace.
Yeah.
So it aired 3 episodes. And then it was done. And Henson himself canceled it, not even CBS.
Wow.
So it ran 3 episodes out of 13 or 18 that were planned. And some animated segments did still exist, but they didn't film the live action segments around it. And because I remember really wanting to see this show, it was heavily promoted because Muppet Babies was so big, and I remember not getting up in time, and I missed it. I'm like, all right, well, I'll catch it next week. And then I couldn't find it. I'm like, what happened? And for years, before we had the internet, we could just look these things up. I'm like, what the hell happened here? And even crazier stuff. If you give me the screen, even crazier still, because this only ran 3 episodes. They had planned a merchandise blitz for this show because Muppet Babies was such a big hit. They planned to do a lot more merch. However, they did get 1 piece of merchandise out for this show, and this is Boo. And it's a puzzle, and they called the other characters Uncle Kermit, like Uncle Fozzie and Uncle Gonzo. They were on the show because Uncle Kermit, even though he's not, Robin is actually the actual Kermit's nephew, but they all called him Uncle Kermit. I'm Uncle Chris to some of my kids' friends. That's my friends' kids. So that's kind of how it is. But yeah, so this is a play school, wooden puzzle for Little Muppet Monsters. You can see it right there. The only piece of merchandise ever released for this show because it only ran 3 episodes. So who was buying this? Me.
Yeah, obviously. Just that's funny. That is funny. Okay. Next up on the list is Mecca Builders.
This is the current Sesame Street offshoot show called Mecca Builders, where you have Elmo, Cookie Monster, and Abby as like anime style robots that teach kids about like, you know, science and engineering kind of things too. It's on HBO Max. I really haven't watched that much of it, but yeah, it's very anime inspired.
Yeah,
it's like you have these giant robots, you know, kind of like, you know, robots are a big thing in anime, and they figured out how to tie, you know, that in because they want to do some kind of superhero thing. Superheroes are big, so they have this offshoot called Mecca Builders. It's interesting. It's on I think it's on HBO Max.
Really, I might have to check that out just for a moment, just to see the animation behind it. Up next,
cool.
I'm sorry. Okay, up next is probably what everyone knows.
Yep,
the Muppet Babies.
The behemoth of all the Henson animated series, of course, Muppet Babies.
And I got a question for you
sure.
after. No, I'll wait.
Okay,
but remind me. It's about the theme song.
Okay, so this one ran from 1984 to 1990, spanning 107 episodes. Of course, like I said, it was the animation was produced by Marvel, and everyone knows that characters like
hold on, I'll give you the screen here.
Everyone knows, you know, characters like Miss Piggy, Rolf, Gonzo, Fozzie, even Robin were sometimes seen on the show. But in later seasons, Bean Bunny, Janice was in an episode, and Statler and Waldorf were in a few as well.
Yeah.
But you know, the later years. So it was nice to see characters, you know, like Bean Bunny kind of introduced because you don't really see them much. Of course, you know, on merch, it was always, well, not always, I should say, because I'm going to show you something, but primarily, you know, the main Muppet you think about. But every once in a while, and I'll show you here, this is Miss Piggy and Kermit toothbrushes put up by Oral-B. And on the packaging, which I thought was interesting, I can get a close up here, is Scooter and Skeeter. And Bunsen and Beaker on the bottom there.
Yeah.
And everyone asks, well, what happened to Skeeter? Why doesn't Skeeter exist in the Muppet world? Well, the thing with Muppet Babies that is not, you know, people kind of forget is the Muppet Babies sort of take place inside Miss Piggy's imagination.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the Muppets Take Manhattan, where the characters were first really introduced, it's all a dream sequence.
Yeah.
Again, that dream sequence was all actual puppets, and then the series itself was all animated. But that's that's the thing. She's kind of like a made up character. I think they should just kind of abandon that whole premise because no one really even cares. No one really mentions that it's all in her head anyway. Just bring Skeeter back. You know, a nice, you know, counterpoint to Miss Piggy that's, you know, sporty instead of, you know, arty. That's fine because, you know, they did, of course, and I'm sure that's the next slide. They did reboot it, but we'll get to that in a second. I mean, Muppet Babies was such a big hit that they even had Muppet Babies Live. They had a whole touring show where they had people in giant costumes. They had the Muppet Show on tour. They, you know, Sesame Street Live. That's still around today. And they had, I think maybe 3 years. They did Muppet Babies Live, and they had, you know, these pennants that you could get of each character. So I'm trying to, you know, find all these and, you know, as good a shape as I can. So here we have Baby Rolf, who was not as much featured in merch. You know, you obviously had, like I said, everybody else was on everything. You know, Baby Kermit, Miss Piggy were everywhere. They even made, here's one for you. They even made Muppet Babies arm slings. So when you got injured, you could put your arm in a Kermit patterned arm sling. So I mean, there was just so much merch for the Muppet Babies. I mean, you go from this to the complete opposite, which is they had porcelain ceramic figurines.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Gonzo and Camilla, and so you have an arm sling for you get hurt, and you have a ceramic figurine it's like the complete other end of the spectrum in terms of merchandise. So I'm like, I'm imagining the kids that wanted this, like, and the parents were like, I'm not buying you this thing. It's gonna break. You're gonna knock it over. Like, I'll give you the plush doll. Like, come on. Why am I gonna give you this?
We got a comment, Skeeter instead of Summer.
Well, that's what I'm just gonna bring up. So that's, of course, I mean, people are old school fans are not so happy, but new school fans are all about Summer Penguin.
And that's on the new show here.
It was introduced on the new reboot series in 2018, and but I'll tell you, I go to a lot of conventions and I sell toys at them and I sell Muppet stuff. When people see Muppet Baby stuff, the kids and the dads and everybody are always asking, you know, where is Summer Penguin? Do you have Summer Penguin? The kids really gravitate towards her. You know, she's a strong character. She's not you know, freak out Miss Piggy, but she's more creative. She's an artist, and I think, you know, and that's nice. The kids are, you know, really picking that up. And again, I don't know why they didn't do more Skeeter stuff. Like, they didn't make a whole bunch of Skeeter merch. She was a major part of the show. They didn't really push her, but when Summer came out, they really made an effort to make her part of the regular line of toys and everything. There's action figures. There's little, you know, tiny figures. There's, like I said, there's this plush. There's a larger plush. So they really made an effort, you know, to make Summer a full member of the cast. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it should be a Summer versus Skeeter argument. I think it should be a Summer and Skeeter argument, because you could have both. They're not the same character at all. Like, they're totally, you know, so you could totally do both. Of course, the new Muppet Babies ran 71 episodes from 2018 through 2022. It just ended like last year or so. And the nice thing about the Muppet Babies reboot is that the last episode, they make the Muppet Show. It's kind of cool. So it's the Muppet Babies putting on the Muppet Show. Oh, it's really, really well done.
Nice.
I mean, it's unfortunately, you know, the reason why the Muppet Babies original show is not as well known, not as well, you know, it's not available that much, is because they use a lot of classic movie clips. That's a, you know, it's a strange thing, because there was a show, you know, you may have heard of it. Most people may not have, on HBO, called Dream On. It's a very adult show. Yes. So kids, I remember that. I don't if you're watching, that's not a show for you. But it was the same kind of show. In the guy watched so much TV that every interaction he had with people, he would relate to a you know, a TV show or something. So it's very interesting to see, like, now again, that was in the late 90s. This is, you know, an earlier series from, you know, the 80s, but it was that same kind of mentality where their imagination was movie and, you know, movie focused. So you had, you know, they'd open a door and the Three Stooges would be in there, or, you know, the Phantom of the Opera from the movie, something like that would, you know, and Star Wars, and on and on and on. So now a lot of the clips are either public domain or even owned by Disney now, because Disney owns the Muppet Baby show. They own Star Wars and Indiana Jones, which they did. There's a great episode, if you can find it online, from the later years. I think it's episodes, you know, it's season 8 or 9. It's Labyrinth. And they actually, Gonzo dresses up as Hoggle, and Miss Piggy is Sarah Jennifer Connelly, going through the labyrinth, and they cut in clips of the witches. Even they turn into mice at one point, and they become and they use actual footage from the Jim Henson movie, The Witches. It's like very strange. Like, wow, I don't remember that. So Disney would have some licensing issues with Henson on that one, but for the most part, like, you know, they own everything. I want to show you one more thing from Muppet Babies. Sure. Here we go ahead. We obviously showed a cell from Dog City. So here's a cell from Muppet Babies. Wow. I'm not exactly sure which episode. I think it's a season 7 episode. But here you can see Gonzo as like Batman, and Miss Piggy is in the back in like this the car. This I got as from Muppet. I guess I got this from Muppet Fest. If you paid for the VIP package, which of course I had to do, you got to see the Muppet Show performed live as part of a charity event, and they gave you a cell from Muppet Babies as part of your package.
Wow.
So this is the self I got from Muppet Babies. It's cool because it's, it's got Gonzo and it's also got Miss Piggy in the background.
Yeah, that's a nice piece. You sent me a photo of that. I remember seeing that one. All right. Now let me ask you my question. Maybe you could help me. And I haven't had a chance to look up the intro just to see if I'm right. But I was thinking about this today, and my work day was just literally crazy today for me. So I didn't get a chance, even on my lunch hour, to look up the video. But the theme song, where everyone's like, Kermit's like, I like adventure, I like romance, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part, and I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I was remembering this correctly. I read it some time ago, but there's a part for Bunsen, but I don't remember Bunsen in the intro.
Yeah, so he appears at the end. It's like, I like adventure, I like romance, I like bad jokes, animal laugh. It's good. It goes, I got my computer. I swing through the air. That's swing through the air is Skeeter.
Yeah.
I like my computer. And God says, and I have blue hair, and he swims through. And then I think Bunsen Beer like me, 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 me. And then Nanny walks in and says, "Hey kids, is everything all right in here?" "Oh, sorry, Nanny." And then Muppet Babies. So I think
I have it right here. It says Bunsen says, "Me, I invent things." Then Beaker goes, "Me, me, 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 me."
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't remember "Me, I invent things."
I think it's so quick.
I have to rewatch
it. What you'll hear is the me, 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 like that's how quick it is. It's really fast. And then they cut that whole piece out in later years, and for syndication, I heard too that. So when you see, some of the later episodes don't even have that. But I thought you were gonna say is the closing theme. The closing theme for the first season is an instrumental of the song you're just talking about.
Yeah.
Where it's the traditional Muppet Babies. Muppet Babies, we make our dreams come true. Right. That's how the theme song at the end in the first season is. In later seasons, for whatever reason, they decided to use the instrumental version of Little Muppet Monsters. So that's the song you hear from most of the series, from like season 2 to the end.
I wasn't aware. I got to check that out. YouTube's going to be amazing for me later.
So you can hear, and you can hear it goes. You can hear like you can hear the instrumental, and where was like, Little Muppet Monsters, Little Muppet Monsters.
Interesting.
It's like the two of them mixed together. It's so bizarre. Like, what? So for years I'm like, what song is this? Like, it's not anything else. It's the theme song to Little Muppet Monsters stuck around for whatever reason.
Yeah. Now hold on one second. Next up, we got Sid the Science Kid. Now I never watched this either, obviously, but I do remember like a lot of these I remember images from.
Right. So this was the first real big motion capture show they did for PBS. It's all about exploring and science. There's a great song in the first episode about charts. They're saying about checking out charts. It's really well done, and it's interesting because it's all done basically like a sitcom.
Yeah.
We as the audience don't see that, but it's all done live, like I said, in motion capture suits, and then they animate it kind of around them and do a high-res version of it later. But they're all walking around in these giant suits, performing the characters, interacting with each other live instead of typically with an animated series. You're in a booth, you do your lines, and then the director tries to match the energy of the other performers so that it's all cohesive. But it's usually not even. I mean, I've heard about you hear about animated movies where the people meet at the red carpet, and they've been making a movie for 4 years.
Yeah.
And you never so it's the same kind of thing. So Sid the Science Kid ran 67 episodes, only 67 episodes from 2008 to 2013, and they even had a series finale movie released direct to DVD and everything called Sid the Science Kid the Movie. And of course, it was a fairly big hit, and they did release some merch for Sid the Science Kid. And actually today, right now, there's Sid the Science Kid and Dinosaur Train merch at Dollar Tree that you can get. But this is one of the rarer pieces. This is a talking Sid the Science Kid plush, and press my belly. He actually.
You can try this too. And that's my super duper duper super big idea.
Wow.
So there you go. So yeah, and it comes with a DVD. This is the Sid the Science Kid screener. The sticker chart. This is I think the first episode I was talking about the charts. So yeah, this is kind of a rare piece. And there was also some other plush available in the line. But this is the only one I believe that would talk. It's the only talking one they ever put out.
Interesting. Interesting. Now the next one up here, let me just pull it up. Oh no, not this one. The one after this. So Splash and Bubbles.
Yep. So this was created by John Tartaglia, who's a big part of the new Fraggle Rock reboot. This was again on PBS. It ran from 2016 through 2018 for 40 episodes. And again, this is all about underwater adventures. It's all about about marine life, teaching kids about the environment and all that kind of stuff. They have a touring thing. A lot of aquariums will have a Splash and Bubbles section for kids to there are some plush. I'm on the hunt for some Splash and Bubbles plush. They did put some out. There's not a whole lot of merch for this show, but I think they're available at aquariums, like I said. So I'm on the hunt for some Splash and Bubbles.
I love their designs. I have looked at the artwork on this. It's a nice one. So this next one here.
So what this was, I was going to tie this in later on, but we'll talk about it now. So Jim Henson created this story called The Tale of Sand in the 60s, early 70s with Jerry Jewell, who was the major Muppet writer for the Muppets, Muppet Show, everything till like he died, basically. Everything from the classic Muppets you love was written by Jerry Jewell. Yeah. So the two of them worked on this, and it was released as a comic book, graphic novel, I should say, by RCA back in like 2012 or something. And so what tied me to this was that there's a recent production that the Henson Company did called Pinocchio. And I can bring this up. So I was thinking, the Henson Company made this whole Pinocchio thing. And I can tell you this is the limited edition Pinocchio set put out by Mego. Geppetto and Pinocchio and Jiminy. It's not Jiminy Cricket, it's the Cricket. If you've seen this, it's really, really good. It's not like a kiddie version. It's there's like one notch short of Nazis.
Okay.
There's definitely fascists. There's Mussolini. He's it's full on like one step below Nazis. So it's really, really good. I highly recommend it. It's going to win Best Picture animated feature at the Oscars, no, without a doubt. But what I was thinking was, with this whole history of animation that we're talking about, it'd be really neat to give Guillermo del Toro this story. Give him just The Tale of Sand, the screenplay that Henson and Jerry Jewell put there, and see what he could do with it. It's about this time traveler. He's like lost in this desert. It's really, really cool. And I think that they produced that story because he had this vision. And I think it'd be neat if they said, hey, we have this story. What's your take on this? And you could do it in stop motion. I think that would be really cool and a real interesting way to bring this original Jim Henson story to life.
Yeah. I got to say, because when I saw this on the list, I haven't read the book yet. I'm dying to buy a copy. It's still available in comic shops. Maybe I'll look on Amazon because my local shop just closed down a few weeks ago. But I'm dying to read this book. Like I've heard so many good things about it. And when I saw the image you sent and I saw that it was the cover to the graphic novel, I thought you were going to surprise me and tell me they're making an animation based on it. But
it's my plea. My idea. I was talking to a friend of mine, about this, and I was like, you know what, that'd be really cool if they did. So I included it just as a wishful thinking, to put that idea in the universe, because I think that would be an interesting idea. instead of just being, you know, a live actor on a green screen, if you did it in stop motion, because if you've seen what they did with Pinocchio, I mean, it's just an amazing piece of art. And here, I'll bring this up too, so you can see this.
Yeah.
This is the
Wow.
one of the posters. They put these out in, they gave these out in some of the theaters that were showing it, and just the artwork.
It's gorgeous.
It's just amazing, and you can see there's like World War II bombers back there. There's people wearing gas masks. There's Pinocchio and Geppetto. Like just the detail and the artwork in this thing is just amazing.
When was this out in theaters?
Briefly, they put it out. They basically they put these things out in theaters just so they can qualify for an Oscar.
Yeah,
it's like that kind of thing. It was only available in like a few select theaters. I mean, this character here is Death. Actually, no, this is the Blue Fairy. There's another the sister character is Death, and it's just really, really amazing. I wish they would create. They released those figures. I want figures of the Blue Fairy and Death, because they're like the Blue Fairy. The Death-like character is like a Sphinx.
Interesting.
It's very, very.
Because well, here's the thing. First of all, even though I love Disney, I like to see the fairy tales not done so watered down. Sometimes I am a fan of, well, for those who watch the show know I have a background in mythology and folklore and fantasy and all that stuff. I love all those things, and I love, if you read, not that I've ever read it, because I never looked for a copy outside of the Italian version of Pinocchio, but in the it's not a happy ending for him, and I think like most, I want to see a good, it doesn't have to be an exact interpretation, but I want to see something a little,
well, this is dark.
Different.
It's definitely different. It's definitely dark. It's definitely different. It's not set in the same time period as the original book or the original Disney film. It's set in, like I said, the 1820s. I think it's not World War One. It's the beginning of World War II. Like I said, Mussolini. There's fascists. It's and there's death involved. It's pretty interesting. Like I said, it's probably for an older age group or adults, but it's really well done. I highly recommend it.
Awesome, man. I want to see this, and now I just want to go buy this book. On the plus side, my birthday's next week, so I got something something to purchase.
Send Mike a copy of The Tale of Sand.
Let's see.
So
the Nutcracker.
This is so on the complete opposite scale. Like it's like emotional whiplash here. The complete opposite scale of that is this Nutcracker special that Sesame Street just put out. It's called Elmo and Tango, and the Nutcracker starring Elmo and Tango, put out in 2022. And it's a very interesting thing because, again, Elmo has a fantasy sequence, and he dreams that Tango can talk and sing, and it's not even voiced by this like there's a Tango like voice that Leslie Carrera Rudolph I think is Tango on the show, and then the singing talking voice of Tango is like a completely other. Well, it's very strange. I don't quite see. I watched it. I didn't quite see the point of it. It's very much for kids. I think it's like anyone can be your friend is the moral of the story. It's very odd.
Okay.
But I mean, worth checking out if you've got kids. Yeah. I mean, but if you try to watch, Christmas Eve on Sesame Street or Big Bird in China, Sesame Street at the Met, and then you see this, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like really kiddie. But yeah, I wanted to just include it as something new. So Sesame Street's still doing offshoots, and it's not even like a part of the show. It's a completely separate special.
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, you could look at it and say that's automatically for kids. I actually enjoy that style a little bit. It's just nice. It's a great fun kids. Like I see a children's book, and I love children's book illustration. That's what it reminds me of. And the last one we're going to talk about is
Oh, so this is the
This is-
Tweedle Bugs. So we mentioned this earlier.
Yeah.
So this is the the Tweedle Bugs started off as a segment on Sesame Street.
Oh no, we got to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That that was puppets. If these are the characters that live in Ernie's window box, his planter box outside. So there was always a segment, and then in 2006 they got their own animated CGI segment where they were just running around. So this is a situation where a lot of the characters did these animated segments later on in Sesame Street were based on other characters that were on the show in puppet form. Like Abby got her got Abby's Flying Fairy School in 2009, and that was the same, based on characters that were also in puppet form. So this was just another thing they did. Like I said, I'm wearing. I sent you. I don't know if we have a picture of this, but I know we talked about briefly the Pointer Sisters doing the pinball number count. That was a major thing in the 70s. Jim Henson animated the stop motion King of 8, and there was like a Princess of 6 or something else that he directed. Going back to 1970, he made that. And of course, if you want to get a close up back on me, I'll show you my shirt.
I was going to ask about it. I saw a little bit.
I had to just do some one more thing. I had to figure out what I was going to wear in wardrobe. So this is a loaf of bread, a stick of butter, and a container of milk from the classic Sesame Street cartoon I Remember from 1972. This company in Canada released limited edition shirts based on Sesame Street, and this is one of them. And I'm like, well, that is just so bizarre. And you don't see that all the time. That's the thing. There's so much stuff in my collection that's like, you kind of see every day. But I really like to see like characters and sketches and other things you don't quite see all the time. And so I saw this shirt. I'm like, all right, I got to pick one of those up.
I love,
and it's perfect for tonight, right?
Yeah. It's actually funny because my wife and I joke about that when we start making our grocery list. I'm like, what do we put on? And then there's a little Easter egg at Sesame Place where they have that at Hooper's store. There's a little like grocery list. Like, it's not great. That's fun. We got 2 more. I thought that was the last one, but I was looking at the list differently. So we got.
Oh, right. So the Henson Company put out a series of direct-to-video animated movies called Unstable Fables.
Okay.
They were all released in 2008, and we have the 3 Pigs and a Baby, which was like kind of like a spoof of both the 3 pigs, 3 little pigs, and 3 men and a baby.
Yeah.
And the Tortoise versus Hare, and Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, but it's like they're living in Beverly Hills or something. Like they're like these weird. This was kind of like the Hensons' answer to like Shrek, where like, it was like these. They took the classic fairy tales and kind of took them on put them on their edge and put them on their head and turned them around. So I think I've only watched the 3 Little Pigs one. They're not great. They're definitely for kids, but they did come with a few pieces of merch. Like the 3 Little Pigs when it first came out came with like a plush pig bookmark that was in it. A couple of things like that, but they weren't highly merchandised except for the directed video DVD itself. They came out individually, and like here we have a 3-pack.
Yeah. I've seen the artwork to these. I haven't maybe Animation Magazine or somewhere, but I never watched
them, and you kind of want to forget them.
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't know. It's something I might wanna check out. I'll be honest. I remember seeing the Tortoise versus Hare design, and I wasn't into the hair design. I don't really like that look on him.
It almost looks like a fox. It's like it's not. It's an odd style. Like I'm not sure if they're all designed by the same people, but they have definitely a look that's not very Henson-y. I'll say that.
That maybe that's what it is. It's when you mention Shrek, I kind of feel you're right. That's what they were maybe going for. It was to try to compete with that. And I'm not a Shrek fan, so
I think the first couple Shreks really had the humor right, and then it got dumbed down for like kids after that. even like the spin-offs, the Puss in Boots movies, the second Puss in Boots movie in particular was really well done. Had, you know, I was like, I remember the first one being good, and I went to see the second one, and it was just amazing.
That's the new one that's out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I've heard amazing. My issue with Shrek, and this happens a lot, and I don't want to say Disney's the best out there, because Disney knows how to make timeless movies. A lot of other companies kind of go for, you know, topical humor or something. And if you don't remember what was going on 15, 20 years ago when you rewatch it, it's like, it's not as funny anymore. You have to think back to what was, you know, going on in the air. And that's what I don't like. I thought they were great when they came out, but they're not movies I can rewatch over and over again, because I don't need to remember what happened back in, you know, 20 whatever, you know.
Well, my thing is that almost every animated movie that comes out these days has to close on some pop song dance thing.
Yeah.
It's like, why did that become a thing? And can we please stop? So.
Oh, and then we got, I believe this is the last one here. Yes.
Oh, okay. So this goes back to the very beginning. So we're going to end at the beginning. So this is one of the first things that Henson did that was kind of animated, and this is animation and mixed with puppetry. Obviously, as you can see here, it's called visual thinking, and this is a clip from Sam and Friends. And what happens in this is from 1959, and what happens here is we have Harry the hipster telling Kermit to visualize his thoughts, and as you know, as they talk about these things, they actually appear. So, you know, let me show you how to do this. Oh, you know, watch me, and all of a sudden a watch goes and has an actual, you know, clock moving, and Kermit says, "Oh, with moving parts, no less." And it goes this whole thing, and they redid this sketch numerous times on Mike Douglas and at the Tonight Show. And you know, after Sam and Friends, they didn't use this Harry the hipster character anymore. So Kermit actually became the Harry the hipster character, and they used a character called Grump, who was more often seen in the Henson meeting films instead of any other real production.
Yeah.
But this, just, you know, a permanent scowl on his face, and it's just, you know, a real, you know, lumpy, grumpy character. Is why his name is Grump. So he became the straight man, and Kermit became the hip happening jazz guy. They would, you know, tell him about visualizing their thoughts, and the screen would get filled up with all these animations, and you know, they say, "Oh, you know, this whole thing really bugs you," and a little spider, little bug crawls across the screen. Really, really cool. So that, that this is a fairly well known in the Muppet world skit, and like I said, it's the beginning of Henson being known and being connected with animation.
I believe this is on one of the DVDs that came out years ago. I don't remember which one this right now. I have a bunch of Muppet DVDs. But
it's clips of it have been shown on different things. I don't know if it's ever been released in full, because it's all Sam and Friends. And there was a few bootlegs going around about Sam and Friends, but
it might have been like one of the others that you were talking about, where they were on a show and they did it with Kermit, maybe. But I feel I remember this bit here.
Oh yeah, I mean it's very well known. It's like I said, they didn't keep all the episodes of Sam and Friends. They lost a whole bunch of them, but this is one of the few that remains, and it's, you know, been a classic Muppet segment ever since.
Man. I'm sorry, I'm just looking. I love this stuff here. Do you want to go through some of the merch? I mean, or have you shown most of it?
I think we showed everything that I was going to show. I will show one thing. Muppet Babies, you know, as most people know, and we said it was such a big hit, but it was a big hit internationally. And as we saw with Fraggle Rock, the major thing that everyone knows when you see Muppet Babies merch is those Muppet Babies plush dolls from McDonald's. They're in every, you know, flea market, toy show. You see them everywhere. However, What you don't see
Let me see.
are the Mexican international
Wow.
McDonald's version. So you see Muppet Babies. You can see a little sign here. So these are
Yeah,
all in the bag still, and they came with little tags that say to and from. So they made Kermit, Fozzie, and Miss Piggy like they did. And the Fozzie is kind of similar to the one that from the U.S. version. It's the Kermit is much different, but they also added to the line Gonzo, who was not in the U.S. line at all. And for some reason, he's wearing like these weird stripy pajamas, which he didn't ever wear on the show. And he's got like rouge. You kind of see his cheek. He's got like rouge.
Yeah.
For some odd reason. But yeah, so they're definitely different than the traditional U.S. releases that everyone's sort of familiar with. Like I said, the Fozzie is kind of similar, but he's still a little different. But yeah, the Kermit, the Miss Piggy, and the Gonzo. I don't have the Miss Piggy here, but the Gonzo especially is definitely an addition to the line. And he's either blushing or he's been getting into Nanny's makeup drawer.
I you know what I have, and again packed away because I have a lot of stuff in a very small studio, so things get rotated every now and then. Basically, that Hanna-Barbera section of shelves is the only thing that doesn't change in here. But I have some of the McDonald's Happy Meal toys where they had the little PVC figurines, like Fozzie was on the horse with wheels, I believe, and I think Kermit had like a skateboard or a scooter, and Piggy was in a little car. And I don't remember if I have any more of those, but I remember getting those as a kid.
They made multiple McDonald's Happy Meals of Muppet Babies. There was 2 Muppet Babies specific lines, and there was also a Muppet Kids line as well. Then they had anniversaries, like they had like a train, let's say, celebrating the history of the McDonald's Happy Meal, and there was like a Baby Kermit and Baby Piggy on that to represent the Muppet Babies toys. So there was a bunch of different Muppet Babies McDonald's toys. Oh, and then they also released storybooks as part of that that promotion as well. So there was a lot of Muppet Babies merch from McDonald's.
Unfortunately, McDonald's doesn't do the great stuff anymore like that. Years ago, we're going back maybe 94, 95, I was developing a comic series. And I actually worked for McDonald's up until 94. That was my high school job. And
classic job.
Yeah, and no, we had to go a little later, maybe 97, 98, because the internet, I was actually using the internet. And I found a company, 2 guys down south, I don't remember the state, who owned the company, who made a lot of like the prototypes for these McDonald's Happy Meal toys. And I was going to try to get them to build a Happy Meal toy style of some characters of mine. It came out to be too expensive when I'm only 20 years old, but yeah. And like, I wish I still remembered who they were, because I was on the phone with one and he was just telling me stories about, their process and how they go about designing these Happy Meal toys. And it's like, that's who McDonald's goes to. So like, if they need stuff, it was these 2 guys down south.
That's really cool. And they also did a lot of test figures. So they released a small batch, and then they'd have, this whole segment of the country would just get like this extra toy or this, and they in West Virginia they had different Fraggle Rock toys. They had Doozers instead of just the old characters, and the Doozers aren't selling well, so they added in Moki and Boober instead of the Doozers. And then I think the Muppet Kids, I think that was also a test run. It wasn't widely.
That's the one thing I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Muppet Kids.
Well, the Muppet Kids were like, there's Muppet Babies, and then there's the Muppets, and in between is the Muppet Kids. They're like preteen, like 12 years old. There's a series of books, and like they're little bit bigger Muppets.
Interesting. I don't know. I have to look them up. I mean, there's so many cool things out there. The world, whether it's the animated or puppet or film world, whatever you want to call it, Jim Henson, everything is so fascinating. I mean, I wish I could say I was a fan of everything. I'm not, unfortunately. I mean, you're gonna like what you like and not like, things.
I mean, wait,
But-
are you telling me right now? Are you going on record right here, right now, saying you are not a fan of Unstable Fables? Because that is a very controversial opinion. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
I will tell you that the two things, there's two properties of Henson that I'm not a huge fan of. The first one is the Dark Crystal. Everyone I love the designs, don't get me wrong. Designs is gorgeous, but every time I watch that movie, I fall asleep. And I can't be a fan of something that puts me to sleep.
Well, I will tell you this.
Mhm.
The way in my mind, because I watched that movie when I was like 3 years old, so
Yeah.
it's always been with me. Yes, it's incredibly slow, especially in this day and age to watch.
Mhm.
What I consider the Dark Crystal as a film, right?
Yeah.
Labyrinth, I consider a movie because
Yeah.
it's very commercial. It's got like people in it, but I consider like the Dark Crystal be a film, and it's to this day what they say what the internet says, the only all puppet movie like ever made like that. So it's got its place. I would recommend you try out the Age of Resistance on Netflix. It's a little faster paced. It's a little more topical with some of the events we've been dealing with in the world for the last few years. Again, it has a fascist element. It has this warmongering, but you realize that that's what was going on originally in the Dark Crystal. We just didn't really. It was talked about in the past, but this is leading up to that, and you kind of see what's going on in the world is just so much more expanded. So I would give that a chance before you poo-poo Dark Crystal outright.
Well, listen, I'm going to be 47 next week. I've given the Dark Crystal a lot of chances. I own the
Fair
DVD.
enough.
I want to love it. It's like design wise, and I've chatted with Tim Clark, who's worked on the designs. I'm very friendly with him. He's a great guy. I've never told him what I just told you.
He's
so
probably watching right now, and now he's gonna next convention. He's gonna,
and that's why one of my views just disappeared. And no, but
and unsubscribe.
yeah, no, listen, I think Tim is a great guy. I think everything, I love his work, and I think the art and the designs on the show are gorgeous, but there was something about the story, even as a kid, that put me to sleep. And maybe it's because it was slow. I don't know, but I love all those things. Maybe I haven't tried watching it in a good 5 to 10 years. I'm going to be honest with you.
I would say also, if you see it, they release it every couple of years now in theaters for like an anniversary, something else. I would see it in a movie theater. That always helps too, because it's an expansive movie. Like when you see it as big as possible, you're like, oh, look at all the detail. Like that's what gets me about that movie is that because it's a little slow, you have a chance to really look at the backgrounds and the character, and you see they made every single thing there. There's no location shoot. It's like the plants move, this thing moves.
Yeah,
it's really intricate, and it's really the art of it. It's like, wow, look at this.
One day I will have to give it another try. The other one, and it's more of a love and a hate to it, because the what's the word I'm looking for? I enjoy the characters, but I found them to be slightly boring at times. Fraggle Rock.
I mean,
those are my two.
Well, again, when you watch the original series, when I was a kid, I was not a fan of the Doc and Sprocket segments for a while, because again, it was like originally on Sesame Street, the plan was to have the Muppets separate, and when they had the Muppets separate, no one paid attention. The audience, meters, scores went down. So they decided, okay, let's make sure the puppets and the Muppets are on the street, they're together, and that's how the show became a big hit. On Fraggle Rock, because of the very nature of the show, where everything is segmented, where it's all these worlds that are connected and dependent on each other, but they don't quite interact, and that you only have Sprocket, the Muppet, dealing with Doc really, and maybe Gobo Fraggle kind of zips in and out, but so you get to those segments, you're like, all right, here comes Dr. I mean, I've grown to love them over the years. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I was like, this is the slow part. So in the new show, it's much faster paced. It's much better for kids today to watch it because, well, and two, it's a serialized story in the new show. So it has its own thing that's happening, but it has an overarching story as well. So you can watch it, and you're like, oh, I can binge watch these, and have this story kind of continue, because they didn't really do that until later on in the original Fraggle Rock. They didn't really start building that interconnectivity and that piece of it. They're like, oh, they built the world, and you go, oh, by the way, here's all these things and how they interact and how they actually depend on each other. And the new show, it's kind of like right in your face. It's all there, and it builds, and it's really nicely done. So I again, that's not every episode. I would say watch like the episodes with Convincing John. Watch it with Cantus. There's like the Jim Henson characters. They're only in a couple episodes. Those are really good. They're a little faster paced, and that could get you into the characters a little more.
Yeah. I want to go to a comment real quick from Lisa, who goes, agreed, Age of Resistance is way easier to watch. I only watched the original movie in full for the first time at the 35th anniversary screening. Definitely see it in theater. Maybe I will. I have an Alamo near me. They show things like that every now and then. I will be
even on for Dark Crystal. They show those in like AMC, Regal.
Yeah,
they show them like it's a Fandango thing. Like they have like these events, and they pop it up all the time.
I'll have to go to the one with the most comfortable chair just in case I fall asleep.
No, don't go to the one with the do not go to the one with the lounges. Do not put your feet up. No.
No. I mean,
has to be as uncomfortable as possible. I want sticky floors. The full 80s experience.
Oh, you don't know my issues with germs. That will. But
bring a trash bag.
No, but like I said, I love the art. I love everything that like when I see the Henson name, especially from stuff from my childhood, I get excited. I really do. Even with Fraggle Rock and Dark Crystal, because I know it's going to be a quality piece of art, like whether it's film, a short, whatever it is. I know the second you see the Henson name, I'm going to get quality. And I'm going to get a good story, and I'm going to get humor done with it. Which is the way I love it. They always had this kind of dry humor to them. And I kind of go for that. I'm a big fan of that type, but that's the type of jokes I even tell a lot of times. It's something I get excited about. I just want to, the stuff that I can't get into that I just mentioned to you are the stuff I really want to enjoy. Number one, I'm a huge fantasy guy. Like, I mean, you could see half of a Lord of the Rings poster behind me. Okay. There's a Frazetta piece behind me. I have another Frazetta piece on the other side of the room. I love fantasy. Dark Crystal is everything I'm supposed to love. And I just can't, that's why it bothers me. So that's why I got to give it another try. I have to. I give it a try every so often.
Like I said, watching a film at home, it's a whole other thing from a theater experience. The bigger you can watch that movie, the better. Again, and what I would do is take a breath and let it wash over you, because it's not a movie like, okay, I got 10 minutes, let me watch this movie. No, it's not like that.
Yeah. No, I know, man. I don't know. I'll give it a try sometime. I need a day off one day, and
now you have a whole list of things to watch too. Now we have this whole list of animated series you can check out as well.
Oh, believe me, I'm going to go to your YouTube page, and I want to see these clips that you're going to be posting. I'm really excited to see some certain ones. I'd have to go through them again, but like the little Muppet monster things, that sounded very interesting to me. Going to see Dog City again, going to be fun. What other ones was it? I don't know. The Fraggle Rock cartoon. I actually enjoyed the cartoon over the actual show.
Interesting.
And maybe it's just because I'm an animation geek and I used to draw them. I like that was a thing. Like for me, as a kid, so somebody asked me a couple of summers ago what my favorite toy as a kid was, and I said pencil and paper. And what
That's
was
a really interesting answer.
yeah,
Wow.
and what was and I explained to them the reason is because I used to make my own like play sets. I used to make my own little figures. I just cut them out, maybe add a little cardboard so they were stiff and stuff, and I would play with the characters I created. So I used to draw all these Saturday morning cartoons. I used to I used to draw things from shows I watched, everything like comics. I just if it was there. So this way, if I wanted the Hulk to meet Kermit the Frog and both of them sing "It's Not Easy Being Green," which actually happened, I made it happen, because I did have a Kermit, doll as a kid. I remember going to the store, and I remember, and this is, I don't remember how old I was. I remember it was at the Poughkeepsie Galleria, I believe. My mom told me that's where they took me, and we were in a store, and they had they had a couple of Kermit the Frog dolls. One of them was from Sesame Street in the news, trench coat and hat, and the microphone he had. Well, and the other one, what? Go ahead.
The funny thing about that is it's actually not from Sesame Street. That's the Muppet Show. They put out dress up dolls from Fisher Price.
Oh, really?
And they put him in because he wore his reporter outfit. He went to, you had the Kuzbanian segments. Be like, this is Kermit the Frog, like Planet Kuzban, and he would wear that trench coat. So that's actually what those are from. But he's so associated with that outfit from Sesame Street. Really? But it's kind of funny.
I was unaware of that. But they also had, just regular Kermit, nude, no, and I'm like, that's the one I want. And I remember my mother asking me, "Don't you want the one with the microphone?" I'm like, "No, this is Kermit." So I had to be, I don't know how old when those were out, but I'm like, I couldn't have been more than like 6, maybe 7 at the oldest, and just like, this is the Kermit I want because this Kermit can do anything. The other one is just a reporter. You
could take his clothes off.
I know. I'm just. Well, you know what? I didn't know at the time.
Nude. What I would do is I had that Kermit. I had both Kermits, and the reporter one. I guess I had taken off, the reporter outfit, and so I made that Robin. Like he was like, because he was smaller. I mean, it was still Kermit. Like I was pretend that was me Robin. And then the other Kermit was Kermit.
That's awesome. I wouldn't have thought of doing that.
You're saying you'd make your own action figures. I did the opposite. I'd make my own play sets. So I'd have the action figures and PVC toys, and I would try to make I'd make skyscrapers. Out of cardboard boxes. I'd make it, and have like an elevator. And have a thing with a piece of string. They'd go up to their high-rise apartment. So I made a bar. I had the Tailspin figures.
Okay.
And I made King Louie's bar from Tailspin, so they all hang out there. I use popsicle sticks as the tiki.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great idea.
So I made the bar. And I made the whole thing so. I had each and I made like a mansion for Batman. I made all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they all lived in the cartoon town that I created in the basement. So that everyone had their little spots, and they get in the Ghostbuster mobile and they drive around. And they so everybody interacted with everything.
That's really cool. I like that. See, this is what kids don't do. We had imaginations, man.
Right. I still have the scar. I cut my my thumb with a X-Acto knife, cutting the cardboard boxes. And my parents it's fine. Except the bleeding. I have an actual gash in my knuckle from when I was 7 making these.
Well, you can't really see it, but I have a scar on my thumb. You can kind of see it a little bit right there. That is from me working in a Greek restaurant and cleaning the gyro knife. It took three stitches.
A creative scar. I have a creative scar.
I spent a lot of time working in restaurants.
I bled for my art.
Oh, I've done that too. I dropped an X-Acto knife in my shin once. I didn't even realize it was in me. I was getting ready for a convention. I was cutting stickers going, and I lost the grip. And I'm like, where? And then I just looked down and I see it sticking in my leg. And I'm like, oh my God, I pull it out. It was just so fast. I didn't notice it. So I pull it out, little blood. I just clean it. It wasn't a bad thing, but yeah, with that was, I have a lot. I actually, I'll tell you this story. In high school, I don't remember if I was building a puppet. I might have, yeah, I was building, I don't know if you know my character Plunger Pup. I did a thing in the 90s about a dog who fought crime with a magic plunger. And I was building this giant head, like paper mache head. And then I was building his body, and I was getting ready to make it all, kind of thick. I was using hot glue, and that was my issue. I had such like the glue gun leaked. And as I was doing it, and then I raised it up like this, everything just came out all over my arm. You can't see it, but all over my arm and my hand. I started screaming. Like I was maybe like,
and it's
yeah.
glue. It's hot glue. It's
yeah, it's hot
like
glue. And I literally basically jumped into those large sinks in the art room they have, where I just stuck my hand in there and I kept going down because I was just in so much pain, like my whole, like just all over here. It was, I was very upset.
There's only two ways to get rid of that: ice or water right away. Right? You can freeze it later, then rip it off.
Yeah. That was bad. You talk about bleeding for. I've been in a lot of pain for my art, and.
That's us, artists. We suffer.
Yeah,
we suffer for your art.
You know what I mean.
You're watching, but you see how we suffer for.
Well, listen. You went to SCAD, so you obviously have a creative background. What you were just saying, what you did, I did with paper, and I would build, buildings and headquarters and all this stuff out of it. You built what you built. It's something where, I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. This is where I was going to go. Most work these days are digital. It's too clean. I don't like that. I don't get dirty with my work anymore. I still draw traditionally just to have graphite on my finger when I'm done. Like I'm not lying to you. I miss having ink all over my fingers. I miss having paint, and you would do all this work, and then you'd be done, and you're like, oh crap, this Sharpie ain't coming off for a few days, and as long as you can get the smell out, you're okay, You
have a little lingering art with you.
Yeah,
it's because of the thing. Yeah, I definitely have become a slave to the Control Alt Delete, or the Control Z and Control. No, I don't like it there. No, I'll do that. Move it around. No, not like that. No, let's fix this thing. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, no, it is. I wish we can go back to some more traditional. I love
which is kind of like the whole Henson thing. Like they're talking. The major Henson product is puppets that are made with felt and ping pong balls. I mean, you can't get more basic than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's what I love. I mean, like I showed my little guy in the beginning here, right? I think he's still.
Yeah.
I can't even get him on. So it's so hard to hold my arm right now with this. I have my compression sleeve on. So
yeah, it's hard to get those muscles working with like a
yeah. I can't do this anymore like I used to. I don't even have the control like I used to. But,
well, that's what I teach puppetry. A lot of these puppet workshops, they'll put a little thing with eyes.
Yeah.
And you have like this little eyes right here, and you kind of focus the eyes of where you want to go.
Yeah, where that's why I'm upset. Like I didn't have a camera when I built this guy, so his eyes are a little off. Like I have to have him looking kind of down. Like that's good, but now my hand is crooked. My whole thing. It's just it's not a comfortable position. But he moves pretty good, and this one of the students named him Ray. And
so I have a question. So you built a puppet that has no. It's just a neck.
Yeah.
There's no real body. There's no head. A company released a Constantine puppet recently. The same thing. No arms. It's just so odd. Like you don't see a puppet often without arms.
Well,
So, I mean,
I was going to put arms on him, but the class didn't go long enough, and I'm like, screw it. In my closet, I got a whole with the puppet books. I got the fake fur. I got more fabric. What I use is dollar store for the mouth. I use dollar store placemats.
Oh,
the plastic. So
that's cool.
it's cheap stuff. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm
Right,
not doing this. But this is when I worked with kids, like on a more regular basis, and I was teaching them different things. And it's a little messed up on the sewing, but it's a pretty decent construction.
No, it's very cool. I mean, I wasn't poo-pooing your puppet.
No. I get you. It was what I was doing. But if the class was another week longer or 2 days longer, he would have had arms, and I would have. And I still might, but I haven't had blue felt. That's really what it is. I just haven't bought blue felt.
You got to match the felt.
Yeah,
that will look a little weird.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. But I do want to build a lot. My nephew I have a 7-year-old nephew who loves this particular guy. And there was one day he took it home and it took me months to get him back. And I just really enjoy the character because when I do work with kids, they love it. You
gotta build one for him as a
that's what I want to do. That's why I got I want to build like a monster for him, but this style, nothing. I'm not going to go big foam heads or anything, something like that. He does have a little foam, if I can get it out, a little piece of foam that I keep right at the tip of his nose. So it's a little,
it's not hard.
Yeah. Well, it's also just a little, makes it a little thicker. It stays in place. It doesn't wrinkle while I'm talking, while I'm using him. So it just stays up in there. I push. And so now you see, so if I take it out, you can kind of see my thumb kind of goes in there and it's a little awkward. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, listen, this is the type of stuff if I could do all day outside of my comics, I would do this. I would literally build puppets. I don't know if I want to perform anymore, but I would literally build puppets all day. I love this stuff. Man. Awesome. So much fun. So much fun. Anyway, but we've gone over 2 hours. And I was telling you, we go about an hour and a half, not a big deal. We did 2 hours, which isn't my longest, but I did almost 4 hours once when I was talking with a friend of mine about, we did a whole thing on fantasy and talking about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. I believe we went almost 4 hours. Really going? Yeah, no. Listen. I want to watch
now. Like we're not going that long.
Yeah, no. I want to end it only because of the time, and for those watching on the East Coast, it's 11:10, and I do want to. Not that I have to wake up early, but I do want to go to bed somewhat early tonight. But I want to say this: I want to have you back on. I want to actually. Although this I thoroughly enjoyed. I loved talking about the cartoons, learning about the stuff, seeing your shirt, fantastic. But I want to have you back on, and we'll figure out what we'll talk about. But man, I think we could just talk about other thing Muppets, whether it's a specific part of the Muppets.
We don't even have to talk about Muppets. We could talk about Hanna-Barbera. We could talk about other animation.
Oh, dude, I mean, that's true. I would love to talk to you. I mean, you said Yogi's Treasure Hunt was like your favorite show, right? For Hanna-Barbera?
Oh, yeah.
One of mine. I mean, of the 80s, that was probably my favorite that came out. But yeah, no, I mean, maybe we will. Maybe we'll do a whole thing on animation, Hanna-Barbera. Oh, man. Now you got me thinking. I mean, my room is a lot Hanna-Barbera. I'll show you this. It's a print of the
your cat.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to get the Fantastic.
Oh, it's like Herculoids and
yeah,
Shazam.
Mitor, it's Shazam. Yeah, Frankenstein Jr. This was, I think, it was called the it had a title sequence like the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera or something. I don't remember.
There's a I actually recently just saw the classic collection Hanna-Barbera like DVD of that. It's like a selection of episodes with all of them together, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Also behind me I have model sheets of Mitor, Frankenstein Jr. Even though it's a Ruby Spears cartoon, it's basically Hanna-Barbera. I got Fang Face up there.
Oh yeah.
And I got the Smurfs over there. I got Papa Smurf on my closet door.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely do something because I have a whole like 80s cartoon collection kind of going on at Roger Rabbit, Get Along Gang, and Don Bluth. I got a bunch of
I got an autographed Don Bluth, Fievel.
Oh, nice.
Back when he was trying to put his was it a Kickstarter or something? He was trying to crowdfund I think it was a Dragon's Lair game or show or something. I forget what it was, but I backed it, and that was one of the awards. It was rewards was an autographed piece from Don Bluth, and I forget who was one of the other like high ups in there.
Goldman or whatever. Yeah, that was
maybe I don't remember.
They came to SCAD and did a visit, and I didn't have any of my. I wasn't a big collector back then of other like Don Bluth stuff, but I did have a few things that were more recently released. So I had him sign Titan AE.
Okay.
I had him sign a Titan AE, the Shock or the action figure for that. That's what I had. So I have a Don Bluth signatures.
That's cool.
I think I have him sign maybe one other thing, but yeah. So it's kind of.
I will say, and I bought this more for fun, just for me to watch. But I spent the money on his animation tutorial DVDs.
Oh, nice!
I don't know if you've ever seen those. I'm like,
not.
It's one of those things where I was like, I know how to animate. I'm trained. I don't really need how to learn how to animate, but to get lessons from someone of Don Bluth's caliber, it's like this is the only way he'll ever be my teacher.
And they were not as expensive as Richard Williams, because Richard Williams did a series of videos like that too, but they were like way expensive. And I mean, obviously, when you're talking about the guy that did The Thief and the Cobbler and Roger Rabbit, and he's a master animator, you really want to like, that's awesome.
I mean, the dude wrote the book, literally.
Right. Literally, right. But yeah, I think they were like some crazy amount of money. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hold on that. And no one's bootlegged them, put them on YouTube yet. But I'm sure if you look them up, they might be there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I only paid like $90 for the whole collection, and that was on sale. Yeah, that was on sale. I was like, dude, this is. It came in a thick. It's just over on my drawing table. That's why I'm looking this way. But yeah, it's like a 8 DVD collection or something, and it's just fun to watch them draw. Yeah, I don't need the instruction. Just let me watch you draw and how he puts the stuff down. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Anyway, we're gonna sidetrack and just kind of keep sidetracking the rest of the night here. I'm gonna drop you backstage. I'll do my closing. Just hang out for a bit. But thank you for coming on. I really did enjoy talking. And learning. I didn't know a lot about, like I said, a lot about the animation stuff that was in there. Seriously, you're coming back on. We're gonna figure something out. All right. So
and you can follow me for Muppets. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube, where we talk about all the amazing Muppet stuff in the collection.
That's awesome. And just look up Muppet stuff.
If you Google Muppet stuff. You'll probably get, a few hits that are mine. I would say Muppet Stuff Blog. You're definitely going to get.
Oh yeah, Muppet Stuff Blog. Yeah.
It's based on the old store that they had that doesn't exist anymore. So if you look them up, I don't think you're going to get anywhere. So yeah, Muppet Stuff. You'll find me.
All right, man. I'm going to drop you backstage.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take it easy.
Thank you. All right, guys. So that was a really fun one for me. Man, I could talk about this stuff for hours, and technically we did because we went over 2 hours. So, And I really don't know what to say, except this was a really fun episode. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope everyone who watched live enjoyed it. I hope everyone who's going to be watching, this is a recorded, enjoys this. I think, and it was just great. Go out, watch The Dark Crystal. Don't fall asleep. I promise I'll do my best not to fall asleep. I will give it a try maybe in a few weeks when I have a Saturday or Sunday free. You guys, though, thanks. I'll have another show next week. I'm not going to say who the guest is right now because I'm kind of finalizing things. It's going to be a really cool thing if it's who it's going to be. I think we're going to learn a lot about comic art, specifically in what's the word I'm looking for? In like a manga anime style. If it's not that person, I got another guest. Really cool. So stay tuned next week. Look out for the ads. Hopefully they'll be up by Saturday or Sunday on my social media. Remember, at Michael Grassi. You can follow me on all my social media at that. If you want to follow me on Facebook at getintoon.net, you will you'll get the podcast page. Anyway, guys, you guys have a great rest of your week. Whenever you're watching, day, night, and please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. All right. Bye, guys.